I almost didn't make this episode. Not because I didn't know what it was about. I knew. Not because I didn't have the words. I actually had too many. I almost didn't make it because this is the part of the story I haven't said out loud yet. Not like this. Not to anyone. Not all of it in order with nowhere to hide. The other episodes, those I could hold at just enough distance to find the words for them. This one, I can't. Because this one isn't behind me yet. And I've spent so long only sharing the parts of myself that are already resolved, already healed, enough to present cleanly, that the idea of bringing you into something still unfinished feels dangerous. But I think that's exactly why I have to do it. Because if this show is about becoming her, about finding the woman that I buried, then she deserves to exist in this mess too. Not just in the insight, not just in the lessons, but in the part where I didn't have it together, in the part where I reached for all the wrong things, in the part where the ground disappeared and I couldn't find it again for a long time. So that part is this episode. Let's get into it.
P.O.S. What have you been calling healed? That is actually just quiet. We spend so much time performing fine, putting grief in a box, outrunning the silence with noise, with habits, with people. But the truth is, you are allowed to grieve messily. You're allowed to be angry and heartbroken at the exact same time. And you don't have to be through it to start coming back to yourself. There's a guide in reflection, designed by Selphos. It's called Pause Before You React. 6 questions. 1 quiet moment. A space to stop pretending and start feeling what's real. The link is in the show notes. She's in there. Here.
Last episode was about signing my name, about refusing to wait any longer for someone else's permission, about refusing to let the committee vote on a life that was mine to live. And I meant every word. I signed it. But signing your name to your own life doesn't just open the doors going forward. Sometimes it opens ones behind you too. Because the moment I stopped running my life past a committee that had no business still having a say, I found myself standing in a room I hadn't visited in a long time. Let me take you there. I was 16. I was in my first relationship. You know, the kind that you think is going to be forever because you don't know yet how many kinds of ending there really are. And it ended. I don't remember anymore if it was loud or quiet. What I do remember is how it felt. Like the ground moving for the first time without anyone catching me. I thought that was the hard part. I thought I'd feel the worst of it and then slowly it would lift. I didn't know grief doesn't wait its turn. Because a couple months later, before I'd even found my footing again, my father chose to die. And I need you to sit with that sentence for a moment. Because I know it isn't simple. It was never going to be simple. He didn't die the way you brace for a parent to die. Slowly, with warning, with time to say the things you're always meant to say, with a hospital room, held hands, and some version of goodbye. He made a decision. And in making that decision, in leaving the way that he left, he did the thing that he had always done. He left on his own terms. Without asking what it would do to the 16-year-old standing there, already reeling from one heartbreak. And I know, it's more complicated than that, but the pain that dark doesn't come from nowhere, that whatever he was carrying must have been heavier than I'll ever fully understand. I hold that. I've held it for a long time now. But here's what I didn't understand until much later in life. Losing that relationship and then losing him, one hit right after the other with no space between them to breathe, that's when it started. That's what I learned without ever deciding to learn it, that love disappears. People leave. That the ground can move twice before you've even found your feet from the first time. And somewhere in that couple of months, without meaning to, I built a version of myself whose whole job became filling voids I didn't know yet I'd spend a lifetime having. Not just that relationship's void, not just his. Every one after it. Every space where love should have stayed and didn't. That's the story underneath all the other stories I've told you on this show. That's where the reaching started.
Installing her OS.
I didn't fall apart in any way that was visible from the outside. That's the part that's hardest to admit. Because falling apart visibly would have been honest. It would have been clean. It would have given people around me something to respond to. Instead, I performed. I got up. I showed up. I said the right things at the right moments. I was fine. You know by now what fine means for me. Fine meant I had located the feeling, put it somewhere manageable, and was successfully not looking at it. And into the space where the grief should have lived, where the anger should have lived, where the confusion and the loss and the complicated love for a man who hurt me and then chose to leave, into that space, I poured everything else I could find. People who weren't right for me, but were present, distractions that worked just long enough to get through a day, versions of connection that had the shape of intimacy without the risk of it. Because real intimacy would have required me to say what was actually happening. And I didn't have the words for it yet. I barely had access to it. How do you grieve someone you were still angry at? How do you mourn the loss of a man who told you he didn't want you? How do you cry for a father when part of you, the part that you don't get to say out loud, is furious that he gets to be gone now when you still had so many unanswered questions? How do you stand at the edge of all that and not reach for something, anything, to pull you back from it? I didn't know how. So I reached. And I kept reaching. And for a while, it worked. The way that things work when you're not actually dealing with something. Which is to say, just well enough to keep going. Just well enough to mistake motion for healing. Just well enough to stay one step ahead of the silence where the real grief was waiting.
The loop loop doesn't stop. Just because you want it to. The same reaction, the same thought, the same automated response, running over the same neural track. You aren't broken. You're just running old code. Break the pattern. How to interrupt automatic thought and reaction. A practical framework written by Tom Lawhorn Jr. It's not about willpower. It's about awareness. Understanding the behavioral loop before the grip tightens. Available now on Amazon. The manual for your system is finally here. Break the pattern.
I'm still finding my way out of this one. I want to be honest about that. This isn't an episode where I tell you I hit rock bottom and climb back up, and here's what I learned neatly packaged in 3 steps. I don't have 3 steps. I have this. The spiral taught me that grief doesn't wait for a convenient time. It doesn't care that a relationship just ended. It doesn't care that you were really finally starting to choose yourself. It doesn't care that you just begun to find the edges of who you were outside of all the ways you'd been hiding. It arrives anyway. And if you don't let it through the front door, if you send it away, keep it busy, outrun it with people and habits and noise, it comes in through the walls, quietly, slowly, until one day you realize the house is full of it and you don't know when and where it got in. That's where I am. Somewhere in the middle of that realization, learning, slowly, imperfectly, that the only way through grief is through it, not around it, not over it, not drowned out by everything I was using to avoid it, through it. And I won't lie to you, that is terrifying, because through it means sitting with the anger at a man I'm supposed to be mourning. Through it means grieving the conversation that will never happen. Through it means letting the wound be a wound, not a lesson yet, not a story yet, not something I've processed cleanly enough to present to you as wisdom, just a wound. Still open, still asking something of me I don't really understand how to give it yet. And I think the most honest thing I can offer you from inside this is permission. Permission to not be through it yet. Permission to not be in the middle of something that doesn't have a tidy resolution. Permission to grieve messily, angrily, without knowing what you're supposed to feel or in what order. Permission to reach for the wrong thing sometimes and then come back. Come back, come back. Because you will come back. I'm coming back. Slowly. Not in a straight line, but back.
Understanding your pattern in your mind is only half the battle. Real change requires changing your environment. If you're ready to bring intentional regulation into your daily life, the official store is live. Go to installselfos.com/store. There, you will find real-world tools and resources engineered to ground your nervous system and disrupt the autopilot. Somatic anchors like premium weighted blankets and physical Pomodoro timers, alongside books and guides available in both print and digital formats depending on how you choose to study. Everything you need to transition from theoretical awareness to daily, deliberate practice. Bring the code into the physical world. Go to installselfos.com/store. Explore the ecosystem and take full ownership of your operating system today. Installselfos.com/store.
I want to talk to you now, not about me, about you. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it, not let it pass by. Who have you lost that you never got to finish being angry at? Not the easy losses, not the ones where grief arrived clean, where you were allowed to just be sad without anything else tangled up in it. I mean the complicated one. The person who hurt you and then left before you got the apology that you needed to move forward. The person you're supposed to miss and also quietly resent. The conversation you're still rehearsing for someone who isn't coming back to have it. You know the one. You've been carrying it a certain way, haven't you? Managing it, keeping it in the part of you that doesn't get to come out at the wrong moment, in front of the wrong people. When did you decide that that was the only safe way to carry it? Ask yourself, when's the last time you let that grief take up as much space as it actually needed? Not the acceptable amount, not the amount that makes sense to other people, the actual amount. Because somewhere along the way, someone taught you that mourning has a right way to look, a respectable amount of tears, a decent interval, a story that resolves, so the people around you can stop feeling uncomfortable. Who told you that? And why are you still listening to them? Last episode, I asked you who's on your committee, whose voice you run your life past before you'll let yourself live again. I'm asking again, because that committee doesn't stop showing up just because you're grieving. If anything, they get louder here. They have opinions about how long is too long, about what you're allowed to still be upset over, about whether your anger is fair, given everything. They don't get a vote on this either. They never did. So what would it look like, just for a second, to stop grieving the way you think you're supposed to and start grieving the way it actually feels? Messy, out of order, angry in one breath and aching in the next? What are you still performing your way instead of feeling your way? What would you let yourself do right now if no one was watching and no one got to weigh in? You don't have to answer that out loud either. You just have to stop pretending you don't already know. Because somewhere in you, there's a version of this you haven't let yourself feel yet. Not because you're weak, because you were taught that feeling it fully would cost you something. Your composure, your reputation, the version of you everyone's counting on to be fine. You don't owe anyone that version tonight. You're allowed to be in the middle of something that doesn't resolve on a schedule. You're allowed to still be angry at someone you're also mourning. And you're allowed to not have the lesson yet. So which one have you been withholding permission for? Here's what I want you to do. Not eventually, not when you're ready, right now. Wherever you're listening from, name it. Just to yourself and just once. Who it's for, what it's about, what you've been calling fine that isn't fine at all. You don't have to fix it tonight. You just have to stop pretending you don't know it's there. That's it. That's the whole permission slip. Not healing, not resolution, just honesty. In a room where no one's grading you for it. You already know how to come back to yourself. You've done it before. Do it again. Right now. In this exact unfinished moment. That's enough. And that is more than enough.
S.
When the nights get heavy, remember this. You're allowed to grieve someone who hurt you. You're allowed to mourn the conversation that will never happen. You are allowed to be angry and heartbroken at the exact same time. Grief doesn't require a perfect victim or a simple loss. It just requires that you let it move through you instead of building a life around keeping it out. You don't have to be through this yet. You just have to be honest that you're in it. That's where healing starts, not at the end. Right here, in the middle, in the mess, in the reaching and the returning and the slow, unglamorous, sacred work of choosing to feel what is real. You already signed your name. That's the part where you find out what that signature actually costs, and you pay it anyway. So tonight, before you close this out, ask yourself one thing. What have you been calling healed that's actually just quiet? You don't have to answer it now. Just let it sit there until you're ready to. She's in there, even now, even here, especially here.
This was a production of Self-OS. Awareness is power.